Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us with Conversations with Kate. I'm Kate, and I am inviting all of you to join us. Thank you for being here. I'm doing this in partnership with Mark. This was all a concept Mark came up with months ago and introduced it to me as, do you want to get together and talk about your actor life every month? And I was like, no. I was like, that sounds awful. Nobody wants to hear me just talk about my life every month. I barely want to. But Mark was really great about it. And we talked, and I knew Mark from previous interviews. And we sort of started running different ideas past each other. And it sort of evolved to this sort of a discussion about what my artistic life looks like periodically and updates, but also his, and also our thoughts on what's going on in the industry and the world at large. So here we are. Thanks for being here. And Mark, where are you at?
I am here, and let me get
Oh,
this looking right. Hello.
how are you doing?
I am doing well. How are you, Kate?
Good. I'm doing all right. Things are okay.
Yeah, no, and you did a great introduction too. That was awesome. I think
Oh,
that's the
good.
first. That was a first. I've never had somebody. Well, I take that back. There was one other person I did, but not in this format. It was something different. So, yeah, here we
Yeah.
are. Session 3, back to back months. We
Yes,
made
finally.
we made it. Maybe get into some sort of rhythm here. But yeah, as Kate was saying, thank you everybody for joining us. And if you're watching or listening to us live right now, please join the chat through YouTube or Twitch. We'd love to get questions or topics from you. If you're watching this down the road, you can put comments on the YouTube channel. You can go to the Instagram and DM me about things. The more input we get from people, I think the more it's going to just really start to blossom with what we're doing. And in the meantime, we have plenty to discuss anyway, but we'd love to have more things from you. And so with every beginning of these new sessions, we're going to try to do like a quick update from the last one. So Kate, in your case, is there anything you'd like to update?
I think last time we talked about how I was applying to some grad schools, specifically just two grad schools that I was interested in, both in London. And I did hear back from one, and I have an interview. I'm going on to the next round, so I'm going to get interviewed next week, and I'm very excited about that. And I have no idea what that process will look like or what they're going to talk to me about, but I'm hopeful we just get to talk about the scripts that I'm writing and what I want to write, and we'll go from there.
Okay, no, that's exciting. Are they going to like maybe as it gets closer tell you like a length of how long you have for this interview, or is it just kind of like you
I
don't know?
think I think they've said I should set aside the hour. And I
Okay.
assume if the interview is 10 minutes, then it's gone poorly. So my goal is just to be open and conversational, and honestly to be a lot like this. So I hope that we get to talk about what is bringing me to writing, and what I think that I can get from the program and what I can give to it. So we'll see. I'm just crossing all of my fingers. So we'll see.
So is everyone else, including me. And I think you're going to do really well because, again, like you mentioned at the intro, one of the reasons I reached out to you is because I love hearing you talk. I love how you think. I love your process. And so I think you pull from so many different areas. And in that interview, I can see you easily doing that, especially with all the things you've already done up to this point. So, it's really different when you have to interview for something that maybe you're not quite feeling solid about, but you have this, it's all there. All that stuff's in your background. So,
Thank
uh,
you.
yeah, and you're clearly passionate about what you do, and
Well, and
that's another.
that's yeah. If she lets me just talk about the scripts that I want to write, I can go for hours. She'll have to stop me for sure, because that I've got that in the bag. It's the question of everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously been through lots of interviews for day jobs on my side. I've been on interview committees on the other side of it, so I kind of see like what those groups are trying to kind of look for, from 10 people to 2 people teams, and
Oh wow.
um, it's always interesting, especially when you have 10 people, about what kind of candidate are we looking to add to our team. and you've got maybe 5 people coming through that you've narrowed it down to. And everyone has something different. That's what makes it difficult, because what I'm looking for, so and so over here might be like, well, that doesn't concern me, Mark. This is what I need.
Yeah. Well, in a
Uh,
lot of ways, I feel like as, for a decade plus as an actor, I know what it is to go into the audition room. I know what kind of conversations they're having. And depending on what kind of project it is, a lot of times they're debating whether they see more of a brunette or a blonde in the role. Like it comes down to things that are so far beyond what we can do or I can do that it's like, well, it's not really about talent. That point's about filling a slot. And so I'm going to just try not to, whatever happens, I'm going to be fine and I'll keep making art and doing what I do, but we'll see.
Well, again, I think you're going to do amazing. And everybody, make sure that you're, putting good juju out into the world
We'll take it.
for Kate, so that she's one of the most deserving people of good juju that I can think of. So,
Mark, thank you. That's
yeah,
sweet.
absolutely. I don't think I have anything to update on my end.
Yeah.
Maybe on the day job situation, that looks like it should be figured out by next week. So that means my schedule is going to really change around, and I don't really want to get into like what I will be doing, but it's one of those. Well, I won't take too much time on this, but it's one of those things where I've been in the position where the job that gets offered to you is like the second place job, and the one that you really want is like not going to make the decision until later. So you're kind of like, what do I do here? Do I string these people along in hopes that this happens? But if you don't get this, then these people might, jump ship on you too because you waited too
Mm-hmm.
long. So that's kind of where I find myself right
That's
now.
hard. That is gambling with life in a way that nobody wants to do. I hope it all works out.
Yeah, I hopefully I should know maybe something by later today. If not, maybe by tomorrow.
Oh, good.
And I won't get into all the details, but the job market's really strange. At least out here, I don't know about the rest of the U.S. or the rest of the world, but it's very almost like the businesses feel they have an upper hand, and even though there's positions out there, they're being really, like I would say, non-professional about how they go about filling those spots. I've never encountered this in all the years of me having to apply for jobs, where you get ghosted. They ask for a question for, hey, when can you do a Zoom interview? You give them days and times, they never get back to you. You follow up with them, they still don't get back with you. So it's like almost like they're saying, you know what, we've been dealing with this for a lot from all you candidates, and now we're going to flip the table and do it to you. I mean, it's really bizarre.
I'm with you on that. And I mean, there are many things I feel like we could talk about maybe off camera about all of those things and all of my beliefs of what works into those and what comes out of them, and that it's frustrating. It's all very frustrating. So best of luck to you on that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Also, I'll definitely have an update by next month
I
about
can't
where.
wait. I can't wait. That'll be great.
And like you said, offline, I can definitely talk to you about things of where things are at. But everybody, let's kind of get into our first topic. And I mentioned to Kate offline that I had a separating the art from the artist scenario that faced me, and it's a huge can of worms. So we'll spend maybe 20 minutes at most, maybe talking about this. But so what the situation was that I was offered a film to review that I was extremely excited about because it was a one-man show that had done really, really well, starting, I want to say, like in the late 80s. And I know this performer went back on stage to do it, so they filmed it basically like a play. So you got to see the whole thing from beginning to end. I've always heard about it, and it was amazing to watch this actor do it. And I'll say his name too in a second. But what I was familiar with, and many other people were, was the actual film version that they did back in, like, again, the late 80s or something, based on this one man play. And so Chaz Palminteri was the one who did the one man play. It's called A Bronx Tale. And then his stipulation back in the day, and he was not known, like he said, he had $200 to his name, was that if somebody wanted to make it into a film, adapt it into a film, that he had to write the screenplay and he had to play the part of Sonny. Those are the two stipulations. Otherwise, he was not going to have a conversation with you. And so many studios came by, offered him up to $1 million for the rights for it, but they wanted to have other people write it. They wanted to have other people cast it. And he said, no, I'm not going to do it. Um, Robert De Niro, the legend, comes along, sees the one man play in Los Angeles, and says, I want to do this and I'll adhere to your stipulations. So you can play Sonny and you can write the screenplay. And then he ended up directing it too. So it turned
Wait,
into a fat. Go ahead.
Robert De Niro directed it, or your?
Robert De Niro directed it and stars in it as well.
Oh man.
So if it's something, yeah, if it's something you're not familiar with, on your own free time, definitely check out A Bronx Tale, the film version. And then again, now there's this one man play that is based on of Chaz doing this whole thing in New York at the Paramount Theater, I believe. So that's kind of the setup. And there was a very, very slight chance, which happens with some of these film reviews, that interviews were going to be available with Chaz. And so I'm like, oh my God, I mean, that would be amazing if I could speak to him. And I knew my chances were very slim, but sometimes, I get surprised and things happen. And being me, if just in case they say, Mark, can you do it tomorrow at 9 a.m., I want to be as prepared as possible. So I've tried to go through his back catalog of films. And the first one off the top of my head that I remember him in was The Usual Suspects from 1995. And he was great in as Agent Kuyan. He's kind of actually made him a name. But then, of course, maybe 5 years ago, there's a lot of accusations and things going on with the director, Bryan Singer, with one of the stars, Kevin Spacey. And so you've got these two basically pieces of shit responsible for that film that Chaz is in, that some other Gabriel Byrne is in, some other people are also in. So I got to this point of like, so should I be watching this? Am I supporting something that I absolutely abhor, or am I doing this because I need to get some information? Because I hadn't seen that film in years, and I know that's one of the things we might have to talk about once we get done talking about his new one man show. And so I ended up watching the film, but it felt kind of dirty. It felt kind of weird. Like I know better. Like I shouldn't be supporting this, but here I am still doing it. So that's where I kind of was bringing up this point of, and it's not just there. I mean, it's across music that I listen to. It's across some other things, just in day-to-day life. If you want to get into like the gas that's in your car and the company that owns that, and all these kind of things. But when it comes to what we're talking about with the arts, I don't know. I don't know if that's something you do, or if it's a case-by-case basis. You do the best you can. I don't know what your thoughts are, Kate.
It's complicated. And I think that lots of people ask this question and they fight about this question, right? It's all over social media about what the right way to approach it is and what you're supposed to do or what the right thing is, or, what the artistic integrity should be as an answer. And I just don't think it works that way. I think that genuinely there, for every piece of art, there are two different pieces of art that it is. It is as the artist intended, with all of the meaning that is imbued by the artist, and separately, it is also the art that the viewer perceives it to be, without any more of that information, right? So they can be two completely different things. If I am looking at it, and when I imagine this, I think it's so much easier to imagine it as like a painting. If I'm looking at this painting and I'm getting from it these really positive feelings and this really interesting concept that totally, backs my entire belief of how the world operates. And that's what I get from it. It's validating to me. But the artist that made it actually made it with a very different intention. It doesn't make me wrong for viewing it the way that I saw it. It means that I disagree with maybe the artist's values or value system, but it doesn't mean that the artist failed, because I think all art of every kind, the only purpose that it serves is to speak to people and is to create conversation and to, I think, really good art create debate. But not all art is necessarily debatable. But all that to say, I feel like when we talk about, can you separate the art from an artist? The answer is yeah, sometimes. And I don't think that the answer should be any more black and white than that. I think sometimes you do. And I think it comes down to, people will think that I'm hypocritical, I think, for that answer. But I also think there are times where if I'm watching something and it makes me feel dirty, like you described, right? Then in that situation, no, I can't. I can't separate that art from that artist. It makes me feel some sort of way. My moral compass is such that I can't, in this instance, separate this person. I can only watch what they're doing and think about the things that they have done that makes the world a worse place. Okay, well, then that's my answer for this particular project or this particular artist. And I think it's okay for that to not always be the same, because, we contain multitudes, right? We are naturally we are full of contradiction. And I think the only time we are ever wrong is when we ignore that contradiction and say, no, I don't want the gray. I'm only black or I'm only white, right? I'm only this or I'm only that. The truth is we can be many things. And I think that we all are many things. I think that's sort of part of the problem with society right now and the way society consumes art is there's always a right and a wrong. There's a right interpretation and a wrong interpretation. And I find that so unfortunate. It goes against everything that art and artists are supposed to be. So yeah, personally, I can't watch Kevin Spacey in anything. I can't. It makes me, same thing. It makes me very uncomfortable because even his brilliant work, and I'm never going to take away from him that he had some very brilliant work. But the problem is I watch that and think about what was happening between takes, or I think about what he was doing to other people that made them uncomfortable or in an unfair power dynamic. And that's also partially because I can't watch a movie without knowing what it is to work on a set. And I naturally am always watching movies, not just consuming the art, but also thinking about the business of it and the choices that are being made by actors in front of the camera and behind the camera. So yeah, that's my like sort of long convoluted answer. And I know that that'll upset some people who feel strongly that like I should have a very specific answer to that I frankly just don't and can't.
Well, you gave me a lot to think about because I feel that I'm in a similar boat that I try to work out of my corner in these situations. And the fact that I was stuck with this of like, should I watch this thing or not? Kind of tells me that I'm just in the right area, that I'm at least thinking about yes
Yes.
or no.
Yeah.
Because some people don't think about it at all. They think, oh, it's just fine. I'm just going to watch through these things. Like you kind of miss the whole point of what was going on, especially in Spacey's case. It's like, how do you just ignore that? I don't know how you do that.
And I
Um,
think sorry, you go ahead. You weren't done. I'm sorry.
no, no, it's okay. And so for me, there's, if you start talking about, Weinstein, you talk about everything he produced. He said, does that mean I don't ever watch all those films? I don't even know all the films that he did produce because he produced so many of them. And then there might be like the artists or the actors or the producers and everybody else involved with those that are really proud of the film, but they're not proud of now this association. They had really, as far as we know, had no control over that based on what this idiot was doing. So I'm kind of like, if I'm lucky enough in a situation where someone said, Mark, I'm extremely proud of this, so I hope that you do still watch it the way that you enjoyed it all those years ago. That's great because then it kind of gives me an answer. But if they don't, which is typically the case, I'm not going to go talking to certain people in Hollywood. I just kind of have to use my own moral compass about, you know what, this is where like you just said really well, if I'm feeling this way and it's so much over to this point where I don't feel comfortable with this thing, that I shouldn't really be doing it. If I'm somewhere stuck in the middle of the gray area, which lots of things are in the gray area, then I just kind of have to do it case by case.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think that's true. And I think you're right. I also don't know all of the projects Weinstein produced, and I'm not going to go looking through his filmography and putting a red check mark next to all of those to make sure that, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to firmly state publicly that he has zero of my support as a human. And if there are certain projects that I know that he was affiliated with because I remember the stories. And because I remember that story, it absolutely immediately gives me a visceral feeling. And I probably won't be able to ever watch those. And that's okay. And it's okay for someone else who says, oh yeah, it doesn't bother me to watch the film. It's still my favorite movie. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to tell them, well, that means that you're condoning what he did, because I don't think that's fair. We're so quick to try to put blame on other people. Okay, hold on. Let's see if I can even get this concept out. The problem that I have with the term cancel culture is that I feel like it shifts all of the blame for a person, an artist, an action that hurt people. It puts all the blame on the masses who are responding to it. And it says, oh, that's just cancel culture, right? they're just doing this terrible thing. And it creates this concept around it that nobody wants to be affiliated with cancel culture, because it has, it's come to mean so many things. But ultimately what it is it's blaming the people who are trying to hold someone responsible for anything, when we as masses have very little power. So like, if something like hearing about Kevin Spacey led to House of Cards being canceled, and I believe that he referred to that as being like it was cancel culture. No, it's the masses hearing what you did and using the very little power that we have to all come together and say that wasn't okay, and we can't watch you in this role anymore. And I think that's also an okay thing to happen. But what I would never say is that someone who still really likes House of Cards and wants to keep watching it needs to band with us, right? Like I feel like that's where we get in trouble. If you feel so strongly that you can't watch a minute anymore, then don't, and let people know your opinion. But don't shame other people for where they stand on it. Because I think other people's ability to compartmentalize is different. And it doesn't mean that they need to be re-educated, in my opinion. I'm going to get in so much trouble for this. I feel like there are going to be so many people that watch this. So like, what a jerk. But no, I mean, it's a very complicated issue. And I mean, even with, I think of the Super Bowl halftime show, the number of people who were like, it was bad or it was good. And I'm like, it was neither. It was art. It can be both and neither. But more importantly, what was it saying? Let's talk about that. That's the debate. So it's complicated. It's all complicated. And I do think in the end, you just have to trust your moral compass, especially when it's research-based for you. If you're in the gray, start giving it a watch and seeing how it feels. And if it feels bad, turn it off. Yeah. And don't feel bad about that.
Yeah, I think you brought up a really interesting point there, and also one earlier about in a particular case with films or theater, things that are in your background. You're going to look at it differently because you've been on. You okay?
So sorry.
No problem.
I tried to mute myself, but I didn't make it in time.
You look at things how I would look at like music and concerts. Being a musician, that there's certain things that any other musician would know. It's like, wow, why did they do that? Why did they do this? And they could have done the same thing when you're talking about with film and how things are between takes or being on a set. And that's your background. You know what that's like. But then, like you talked about, most recently right now, the cancel culture piece. I'm so much into people doing what they want to do that I have a real problem when, yeah, it's become public knowledge that this person did this, especially if they're found guilty on multiple cases or whatever. Then to me, it's pretty clear cut. But that still doesn't mean, like you said, I'm not going to tell people don't watch House of Cards, don't watch Usual Suspects, don't watch Seven, don't watch whatever. That's kind of your choice to make. I might personally make a choice not to watch these things,
Yeah.
but that's me. I don't need to put my feelings onto you.
Mhm.
But there's definitely been times when people have tried to do it to me when I'm kind of like, yeah, especially if it's a research purpose, that I kind of need to know what this person's done, and I didn't realize in some cases that they're tied to something. I remember I was watching. I don't remember that lady's name, but I was watching a film that I had to review. I was like, wow, she really stands out. She's pretty interesting. I wonder if she'd want to do an interview. And then I did a search on her. I'm like, oh, she's tied up in all kinds of like whistleblowing shit and a bunch of other things that I had no clue who she was. So I was like, oh yeah, there's not going to be any chance that she's going to want to talk to anybody right now.
Wow.
It was some big deal, and I'm like, I had no clue who she was, what her name was. So I was just thinking, no, she's doing a really great job in this film, and she did do a great job in the film. But other people, of course, are going to have issues. Like if I didn't manage to get her to come on and talk, they're going to be, how did the chat would be filled with all kinds of nonsense, and I'd have to be sitting there blocking people, and so that's not what I do. That's
right.
This is not my pay the bills job. If it was, it'd be a little bit different, but it's not something I have a passion for. Something that I want to do, but so I can choose how I want to do what I do. I can, and I'll make sure that we have plenty of time. The other thing for me is that I definitely listen to some music that gets into subgenres, and there's a whole back and forth about certain things, not related so much like what you were mentioning, like with the Super Bowl. We could talk about that for a long time. But there's music that some bands are very political, and they're very open about their politics. And so then some fans are like, you can't support that kind of thing because they said this, 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 and this. And I'm kind of, I understand where you're coming from because that is pretty offensive, what they said. But then when I listen to that music, I'm like, damn, that music's good. And it's just kind of coming from a questionable person. So then I get into this thing like, should I be listening to this kind of stuff? And I still choose to do it because I've had email conversations with some of these people. So if they're so bad and represent things that are so horrible, let's say for like people of color like myself, then why the hell? And they see my picture, they know what I look like, and they see my name. I mean, Sugiyama is a pretty Caucasian name. That why would they even engage with me? And why would they open to do like I've traded with some people. I traded music, CDs for CDs, kind of a thing. And they threw in extras, some really cool stuff that I didn't know that they played on. But then if you go to the internet, then it's like, oh my God, you're a piece of shit for even talking about this band and doing that. Let alone that I actually had a trade with somebody and like, look, that's not how he treated me. I understand. Again, you can have your decision and your point of view on this, that you can't stand what he does or what they do. But I'm making a personal decision on this band that I will still listen to their music, which means I am supporting them on some level.
Yeah, and it's complicated, but I think it's that degree of trying to shame people into making the same choice that you've made. That uh, that's where people lose me, and it's frustrating to watch it happen. I mean, the problem is really the whole industry. I think it's true for film, it's true for music, probably. I mean, the whole industry is predicated on a lot of problematic people, right? A lot of problematic people had to stand on each other's shoulders sometimes just to get rock and roll started, right? Or whatever it might be. So it's like, yeah, it doesn't mean that an entire genre should be shut down because it only came about because of this terrible thing. It's complicated. It's just more complicated than that. So really, as long as I think the best I could hope is that everybody wants to research. I hope that everybody chooses to bring to light, hey, this band has said really problematic things about people of color, for example. Like, that is public information that I think we all need to have access to, so that we at least go into it knowing what's going on, hearing the lyrics and being like, oh, hey, that's their agenda. Why hear that? I'm not comfortable with that. And drawing our own boundaries around what we want, what we choose to consume, and what we don't. I do think it's not an excuse for not doing research. That was a lot of negatives. But I guess what I'm saying is I feel like everyone should do their own research. You can't hear Kevin Spacey is problematic and go, oh, but I like House of Cards, so I'm not going to listen. I'm just going to keep watching. No, I do think that we all have an obligation to look farther into it, to find out who's being harmed and how, and to note for ourselves how many allowances we're giving. And maybe at some point you're going to recognize, wow, I give a lot of allowances. Maybe that's problematic in itself. I think the work we all really need to be doing is really on ourselves. It's not about yelling at this person and forcing them into a different opinion or whether they disappear or, whatever we want to control other people to do. That's nonsense. We have no control of what other people do. We just need to take some accountability for ourselves and make sure that at the end of every night we can feel like we're upholding our own moral compass. Because art and morals, I mean, they do naturally go together. They have for a long time. So yeah, figure out where you're comfortable with it.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. That sometimes so many people will take so much time to point fingers at other things, other issues, other people, and then you realize, everyone's got areas to work on, including myself. I mean, we all do.
Yeah.
So why don't you take some of that energy and start trying to figure out yourself, and also maybe where your moral compass is. Like you said, it's a really good, interesting point about how many allowances are you giving? Maybe you didn't realize you're giving it's like 100 allowances. You thought you only did 12. It's like, oh
Right.
shit. I got really used to just doing this and allowing it, and I didn't realize I kind of caught myself up in the fact that that's not what I want to be. So I need to kind of make some deliberate changes to how I approach things.
Mm-hmm.
I think the people that are self-aware can do that because they are self-aware and they kind of try to figure things out. You can still get caught into a pattern. It's easy to do that,
Oh, for sure.
for myself. But some of the folks that aren't, that just kind of, I don't know what drum they're marching to, but it's one that I don't quite understand.
Yeah.
And we won't get into that whole area, especially in the state of the United States right now. But this kind of approaches into that area as well. It's like, what are you doing? what are you doing to better yourself, better that again that corner that you come out of, on if it's your community, if it's your friends, your family, your circle. What are you doing to try to make things as good as possible in your eyes, whatever that is, instead of like pointing at all this other kind of stuff and then like, yeah, my shit doesn't stink. Oh yeah, it does. It absolutely does right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, we are in such a divisive point in history right now that yeah, something like this bleeds into that. I know we had talked about artificial intelligence is becoming a huge issue now. I'm seeing it more and more and more.
No, I
I
know.
just saw somebody talk about a film that's coming out, and people were just going after the poster art about it being AI, AI, AI. And some of that I absolutely can tell by looking at, and sometimes I can't. I'm not really sure what I'm looking at, let alone if you're looking at like a TikTok video that's completely not real. It's some kind
Right.
of bullshit to make you feel a certain emotion. They're saving an animal, doing something to it, and they're actually not doing that. It's something that was created on a computer.
Right.
And I know for you and I think this is something we're going to end up talking about in a future episode really quickly because it's just growing. It's not going away by any stretch, and it's now infiltrating all these other areas in the mainstream that most people aren't even aware of. And sometimes they think it's cool. They think it's
I
wonderful.
know they do. I know. I know. There are people that really seek out AI. I mean, like there are Facebook and Instagram and TikTok is like constantly trying to like populate all of these videos that are like, if you look at them, that are actually like labeled like National Geographic AI is this channel that exists. And I'm like, and it looks like it's a logo of National Geographic and is 100% guaranteed not in any way affiliated with National Geographic because it's all manufactured. The video I think I saw was a sailor pulling a mermaid out of the water, and it looks horrific and really distressing. And like the women on the or the men on the boat are all like looking at her in this really creepy, gross way, and she looks like she's gasping for breath. I mean, it's like, okay, but why does it even exist? And like it concerns me that what is it that AI are like, what is it that intelligence is learning from, and why is it picking some of what seems to be some of the worst traits of mankind? And I don't know. That's sorry. AI is something I get really frustrated about. We will talk about that another time. I'm sorry. I need to gather my thoughts and feelings on that one.
Yeah, no, I when it was first getting broached, I was very much like, well, this. So for me, coming from a photography background, I worked with digital artists, but these are actual people working through
Right.
things. They're not just randomly throwing it into an app or something or a website and that's generating things from other art that already exists. But
Yes.
then, but I can tell you that I bet you those folks are having a horrible time right now because this is what they've been spending years trying to perfect, and now people look at their work and say, "Oh, some
It,
computer generated that."
yes. It reduces, I mean, this AI delegitimizes everything about art, everything that it is, and I mean, that's not even hyperbolic. I'm going to maintain that is true. It delegitimizes it. It makes it look cheap and completely sans humanity. I mean, it's literally, it's part of like the human condition is to create art. Or it's infuriating that AI is it's doing all these things. I need to I need to let that one go. I'm gonna because I'll literally just sit here and just vent about it for way too long. I'm gonna
We
calm down.
we will definitely get into this topic at a later episode for everybody that can see that. And there could be people listening and watching to this right now that don't even understand like what our problem is with it. So that's why we have to take some time to get into it. We'll let Kate kind of gather her thoughts and
The
and
number of people that I know that have like lost jobs because who needs extras in a battle scene when you can just AI a bunch of people? Like, I mean, people are legitimately just losing work anyway. But yeah, but we will.
yeah, yeah.
We'll explain it to them later.
Yeah, for sure. And so we're going to switch like a really big gear, everybody that's watching or listening. Again, if you have a comment or a question or a topic that you want, if you're watching this in real time, because I know some people are, they're listening at work, put it into the chat, please, so that at least we're aware of what you'd like us to maybe talk about or discuss now or at a future session. And if you're watching this again down the road, same thing. Go to YouTube, go to my Instagram, go to Kate's Instagram, whatever. Send a DM and give us an idea of what you'd like to hear. But I was telling Kate that I've been watching a lot of things online, and there's been sessions, which makes sense. Everything's about content. I have to be a content creator for what I do, and so you record like 4 different things all in the same session, and you release them different different months, different weeks, whatever. And one thing I wanted to kind of broach with Kate was about food. And what's interesting about these sessions that we've had is like there's a lot about both of us that we don't know about each other. I
Yeah.
mean, there just is. And so like I have no idea if you're somebody that, body is a temple and you're really careful about what you put in there, if you have allergies, to certain foods. Clearly everyone has things that they like and don't like. But one of the things I watch, and there's a lot of these things where they're trying out different snacks, different foods, sometimes from different countries even, and just seeing what they, do you like it, do you not like it? And so like in Kate's case, where are you? Like, are you someone that eats lots of things? Are you real picky? Are there things that you don't put into your body? Where are you on that?
I love trying new foods and new flavors from new places. I remember the first time I had Nigerian food, I freaked out because I was like, this is just all like it's activating totally different parts of my taste buds. Like I don't like to say foodie because I feel like foodie always implies like 5-star dining. Like, no, I'll take whatever I can get wherever I can get it. I think the only thing I do try to avoid a lot of overly processed foods and chemicals, but also like, man, I can jam out on some fun weird snacks. Like if there's just like when you go to World Market and they have those just aisles of different kinds of snacks from other countries, I'm like I would love to get like one of everything and just sit there and try them all. But I also am allergic to gluten, which is lame. It's so lame. And I didn't make it up. It's been like 12 years that I haven't been able to eat gluten. So it also really hinders me from trying a lot of new foods, especially, for example, a lot of like the Japanese snacks, the ingredients are written in Japanese. And so it's a struggle for me to know if I'm going to be allergic to it or not. But there are like, I use Google Translate and I try to be like, so I'll do pretty much anything for a good snack. Like I just like to try new stuff. So no, I'm not picky. Um, and yeah, I'll snack on them, I'll try them, but I wouldn't feast for years on chemicals. That's my only real line that I draw.
Okay, so that definitely opens up the possibility that we could try something that we can both find locally and then try it live here where we're actually eating this thing, if it's a candy bar, if it's a fruit, if it's whatever,
Sure.
and seeing what our honest thoughts are because we will be live
Yeah.
and you can't edit that. So and one thing that came up to me was that where the heck was I was at some store and there's something in the under the Reese's umbrella, I guess you could say. And I think it was called a Take Five candy bar. And I'm like, what is that? And I kind of looked at the stuff on the front of it, and it looks like the foundation is like pretzel based.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's peanut butter and chocolate then on top of it or what they do, but I'm like, I'd never heard of this thing. It's probably been there for years for all I
I
know.
Yeah, I think it has. I think because back in the day, I think I used to really get down with Take Five bars. Now I'm looking it up to find out
Okay.
Take Five snack. Um, what is its origin? Like what year? How did you find that out? I'm gonna look into that because now I'm fascinated. Yeah, no, I think I've definitely eaten those, but that means it would have had to be like 12 years ago at least because I can't eat pretzels. It's a real
Right.
bummer, man. Like the things that I can't eat, it's a bummer. But I think we could totally find some things. Maybe we could do like find one new, not new, but like one like a piece of produce from the store that we've never eaten before. Like I can't think of what one would be, but like dragon fruit. I've never eaten raw dragon fruit. Something like that. Like it can be like something like that, and then also a candy bar and also a snack. And maybe we can have like one of each and see who likes what, why.
Yeah, no, I love that idea because I thought I can easily kind of go someplace and look in the produce area and just kind of make a list in my phone of like, well, here's something I haven't, and see what matches up with you. Like, well, when I went to the grocery store or whatever, here's some things that I know I've never had, and see if there's some commonality there, so that we try to
Yeah.
get something that we can, obviously both buy, and then maybe even down the road, if we really start getting like into this, we could actually mail stuff to each other, like something unique to my area that maybe you've
Oh, that
never
would be
had,
fun.
and then and vice versa, and be like,
And we'll have like an unboxing video where we get to open them for the first time.
yeah, because I'm thinking of something that I'm pretty sure you probably have never had, and there's different varieties of it. It's an Asian thing that is popular in China and popular in Hawaii, but I won't get into what that is because I want to see how this goes first.
That's fair.
Uh,
Oh, but I'm so
but
curious. But okay.
but yeah, it could be something like, oh my gosh, this is absolutely awful. It's terrible, Mark, or like, oh, I love this. What else
I
is there?
I don't. I'm really open-minded. Like I think even if it's not something that I choose to eat again, there's very few things that I would ever be like, oh, it's terrible. Um, oh, I'm excited though.
Okay.
Spicy hits hard for me. I still am a white girl, unfortunately. I mean, I can do more than Indiana spice. I give myself that. I'm from Indiana, and Indiana spice is beige. I can go spicier than that, but I'm in Chicago and I can't go full Chicago spice. I can't. So
Well, we're in the same boat because a little spice is okay for me, but I'm not somebody that seeks it out by any means. If somebody full out tells me, Mark, this is going to burn you up, okay, I don't want anything to do with it. But I don't need to be like bland zero
right,
kind of thing
right.
either. But a little bit,
I
that's
feel like
fine.
I think there's a couple different kinds of spicy. If it's the spicy that just like sets my nose on fire, there's no flavor there, so I don't like it. Whereas Nigerian food, oh my God, Nigerian spice is a whole other kind of spicy. And in the world where that's spicy, I can handle it because it's got so much flavor and texture to it. There's so much more to it than the heat. But oh, that do you have you had a lot of Nigerian food? Do you have a lot of
I have not that I know of. We have a lot of Ethiopian restaurants out here.
sure, Ethiopian's good.
And depending on where you come from, we've had Thai food here probably since the 80s or the 90s, which is to us common. I've had some friends that moved from other parts of the country, and when they got here, they didn't have any Thai restaurants in their towns, and they were not coming from podunk towns; they're coming from regular cities. Um, and I think about East Indian food having spice for sure, which there's lots of different things of that around here. So I think we're pretty similar. That I'm open minded when it comes to food. I will try almost anything once.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, if they already know it's like on a scale of 1 to 5, it's a 6. I think I don't think I can even get near that. I might want to look at it, but I don't think I'm going to try
Right.
it.
I want to smell it. I might want to have like feast on the smell. I was just looking it up because I was trying to remember what it was called. I think it's fufu. Fufu is a Nigerian food. It's a soft, doughy, starchy food made from cassava or plantain flour, which makes it a thing that I can eat because that's not gluten. And that with a goosey soup, that's what I had it with. Oh, okay. Well, I know what food I think I want to have you try because if you can find it, we'll have to figure out what you can find. But oh, if we get like a nice fufu, oh, yes. Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah, no, this is great. I mean, again, it's something that I've never ever done. It's something that we sound like we're both, open to trying and doing and seeing where it goes. And it could be a piece that goes further. And like for people that are watching or listening to this, I had mentioned to Kate that I wanted to kind of do a peek behind the curtain of like how we have discussions about things. And sometimes it's more just like send a message back and forth kind of thing. But I thought we should do it live and see how we kind of come up with our topics, and that pretty much anything's game at this point, because it's whatever we decide to do, and what you decide to do. If you want to throw a wrench into what we're talking about, then again, give us a comment or a topic or something, and we would love to explore what you say, as long as it's not something completely disgusting or whatever. But outside of that, I can't really think of anything that someone would say that would be like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. Maybe not time and place, but yeah, with the food thing. I think it could be really, yeah, just really interesting with all the stuff around, and also like back, I don't know when this was. I was way into the craft beer community, and there's a gluten issue for you, I know.
Yeah.
But I used to trade with people all around the country, so it was so awesome to get stuff from someone's local breweries sent here, some swag that they had, a T-shirt, whatever, key opener thing. And so I used to have just a ton of stuff, and vice versa. They want something from the Northwest, or if there's a specific beer that is getting, all kinds of people are trying to find, it's getting really rare or whatever. Mark,
Yeah.
don't you live in Seattle? Do you have access to this beer? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I mean, that stuff's been selling out, so I'd have to kind of really be in the know. And back then, I was in the know, so I kind of knew who was getting what when. I'm not in the know now, but that also kind of sprung that idea in my head with you about trying something like this out, where there's probably something that's local to you that I would have like maybe no idea what it is because we don't have it out here, and maybe vice versa.
I
Um,
don't know. I feel like I bet a bunch of Chicagoans would yell at me for this, but I feel like Chicago's whole thing is we're sort of still like the melting pot of so many different cultures that like what makes us I think unique is you can go to any kind of like we have tiny neighborhoods for every kind of restaurant, right? Like we have Greek Town, we have sort of Thai Town, we have I mean, all of it. So like it's fun. We have Nigerian food and like easy reach, Jamaican food. We have it's all I'm like pointing to where they are on a map, but you can't see it. So it's just me pointing randomly. Um, I feel like short of I'm supposed to say pizza, but I'm not going to say it because everyone has pizza and Chicago pizza is yes very good, but honestly the locals don't eat the Chicago pizza. It's just for the tourists. Like we know better. So no, I don't think Chicago has a very specific, unique. Oh, Malort. Oh, that's what it is. It's an alcoholic beverage. You need to find Malort, which unfortunately I think means that I will also have to find a Malort, and we can have a shot together next week or next month.
okay,
That's what it is.
what kind of alcoholic is? Can you describe what this is like?
I can tell you that I believe it originated by during the Prohibition. They weren't allowed to sell alcohol, and someone with some kind of a strange medical degree that was very questionable, I believe, started selling this with the understanding that it was a wink wink medicine, but technically it has just enough medicinal properties, but also is not. I I'm really ruining the surprise here that it is disgusting, but it is ours. It is 100% Chicago's and nobody else's. Um, it tastes. I'm not going to tell you what it tastes like. I'm not.
Okay.
It's not in any vein of anything. It's not a gin. It's not a vodka. It's not a. It is Malort.
Okay. Yeah, this is the first I've heard of it, so I had no clue. This is something I
Do
definitely I'll
do
look into.
as little research as possible
Okay.
into what it is. I am looking it up now to see if they say it's some kind of a grain. What is it? It's a Basque liqueur with a Brandevin flavored anise and wormwood. It is the
Okay.
thing that like locals actually will force their families to come over and be like, "Oh, have a shot with us," and then we just sort of watch their experience.
Well, that sounds awesome because that's the kind of thing that me being the kind of person I am, if I have something like that locally here, which I'm not really sure off the top of my head, I would absolutely have people go either drink or experience it. I'm thinking of a restaurant that's unfortunately no longer here. It was a barbecue place, and this is back when I was still teaching, and we had an early release day, so like a group of us went to this barbecue place. I'd never been there, didn't know anything about it, but two of our staff had been there, and you basically they're it's kind of like the soup Nazi, where I mean they're just gonna like yell at you and berate you and that kind of thing. And so of course the two staff that had been there, they went last. They let the four of us go in front and place our orders. I remember the gal was giving me a bad time because I reached up to grab what I thought was my barbecue sandwich, and it turns out it was the person in front of me. And she was like, "What do you think you're doing?" And just la la la. You know, like just mortified. Like, put the sandwich back. So I'm so sorry. I didn't know that was my. How do you not know that's not yours? They're like, oh Jesus. And
That's so
so
funny.
it was a whole thing like that. Plus, they had a super spicy sauce that the owner would literally come around to your table and ask if you want to meet the man. And if you're like, what's that? You know, who's the man? And as soon as you said that, then he's going to put a dollop of it on your food. And
Incredible.
me not being a spice person, I'm like, oh, I mean, I don't know how people eat that stuff. And some people actually request it when they knew. It's like, I'll put, slather it on my ribs or whatever. Um, but that kind of thing. So of course, next time I went there and having this knowledge base, then I bring someone who's never been there. I brought someone who was actually from Canada who said she liked barbecue. And I said, oh, I got the place for you.
It's fun when you're in on it. It's fun when you're the insider. I I just looked up the one that was here that's like that. It's called Ed DeBevick's. And Ed DeBevick's is known for that, and they hire a lot of actors because of that. Because a lot of times they're looking for servers who are actors who can just be really, really rude to the customers, but also graze that really fine line between still actually, taking care of them and not spitting in their food. But I did not know what Ed DeBevick's was, and I had just moved to Chicago. I had an audition nearby, and I was like, I'm just going to find a diner to just sit and just get a coffee, and like, I'm way too early, so I'm just going to relax and try to like enjoy a coffee and then go into my audition. And I picked the wrong. You don't go to Ed DeBevick's alone. You don't go just for a coffee. Like, I got mocked so much. I was like, Chicago sucks. Like, I had no idea this was their thing. They just kept throwing straws at me, and I'm like, what is wrong with you people? And then everyone laughed at me when I was at the audition. I started telling them what I did, and they were like, wait, you went to Ed DeBevick's for coffee? Like, no. So I learned about it. But it's fun. It's fun when you're on the inside.
Yeah, and I think I don't take myself too seriously when it comes to just day to day things when I'm out like that. Especially if I'm out with people that I know. So it's like, if they're trying to fuck with me, that's fine because I'm going to fuck with you back.
Yep.
So I'm not that uptight about stuff. I laugh all the time. So, but yeah, so this I'll make sure that I don't do any kind of research. I'll just try to see if it's available here for me to actually make a purchase, and we'll solidify this kind of thing before the March session, so we kind of know what are we actually bringing to the table when we do this. I know one thing. This has nothing really to do with that so much, but back during the pandemic when I started doing these live streams and I was having the fun table sessions, which I believe I talked about, were like virtual happy hours. Of course, one of my guests said, Mark, for a future one, we should get sloshed. We should like really get sloshed live. And I'm like, I'm fine with being buzzed. I don't know if I want to get sloshed.
Yeah.
And especially since it's, a reflection on my channel and what I do. So I'm like, if it's just you and I and no one's, paying attention and recording it, then I don't give a shit. Then
Sure.
That's fine. But, this could be going literally, someone around the world could see this that somehow has some way to help me out with what I do or something. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to go there. I did have two guests, unfortunately, that did have too much to drink, and that was really awkward.
Oh boy.
I didn't know what to do. I probably could have just taken them off of the live stream and talked to them behind the scenes that, hey, you guys, I think have had too much, and it's getting really uncomfortable. And there's other guests too with these things, so it's just those two. And so that's the only live stream that I can think of that I had to go back and edit out like 20 minutes of it because I was like, I just don't want this out there. I just don't. Typically, I'm like, warts and all, whatever you said is what you said, and so be it. But that was just like not a good look for them.
That's fair.
Or for me.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm like, I think the thing is you have a brand, and like this is your professional brand space. And so you're at least cognizant about what goes on it and how it comes across. And I think that's totally valid. Like, sure, absolutely. In a professional setting, I got drunk once. It was intentional. Like it was what they called a wet run. If you're familiar, we were doing a show that takes place in a bar, and she was like, for informational purposes, this is written in real time. Like you hear every time your character orders another drink, we need you to know how drunk your character is by the end. I, at this point, fundamentally disagree with that approach, but a wet run, the cast voted. It was unanimous that we were all fine with going through with it. And it was the most embarrassing night for me because my character drank more than anyone else because it was, the whole story was about like my character had this deep secret that she knew that her father was dying in a hospital and she was still choosing to be out with her friends. And so eventually it all comes pouring out when she's really drunk and it's this whole thing. And I think I don't remember anything after intermission. Like, and again, this was no audience. This is just rehearsal. But once we hit that midway point, I remember nothing. And it's terrifying. It's terrifying to look back on that and be like, who does that sort of, like, I'm not a big drinker anyway, and I'm not judging anyone who is. But that was not fun for me. It also couldn't be educational past a certain point because I didn't remember any of it. And the scariest part was I don't know how I got home. I know that afterwards, I know that my an understudy in the show put me in a cab and I couldn't say my address. So he had to call my partner and get the address. Like it was really, you know, and like what I learned was, yes, my character is very, very drunk by the end. However, I also know that I am more of a lightweight than I think my character was. So, anyway, moral of the story is don't recommend it. Don't recommend drinking for professional purposes, even when it's asked. It's not great. Not a good time.
That sounds horrible. That experience that you went through. That sounds like a liability issue as well.
I think it was, and I think it was fortunate that the theater company producing it, I was an ensemble member with that company because they knew that I wouldn't hold them responsible. However, it was luck. I mean, I didn't say yes to the wet run because I was an ensemble member. But I'm not a litigious human and I probably wouldn't have. But if I had fallen, you know, because I was so drunk and you know, who's to say? All that to say, I personally don't advocate the wet run. In case anyone is considering it, I don't encourage it.
Yeah, and for someone like me on the other side that is not an actor or anything, I'm kind of like, isn't that what you do as an actor? That you can pretend to be that drunk,
That's
not
the
have to
idea.
actually do it?
Yeah, I think that's the idea. But I mean, I also think about how many. This is the problem with method acting too. There's lots of people in lots of movies that we've seen where the drunk character is actually being played by a drunk actor because they insist on being method. But like, how unsafe for everyone, right? Like how you know that they're given some handler to make sure that they don't make a mess of the set, and like how unfair to whoever that person is, whatever unlucky PA gets that job. I again, we've been talking about the problematic nature of the industry. There are a lot of things that we should examine in terms of what puts not just actors like lives in jeopardy, but lots of other things. So anyway, that'll be saved for another time. I know we're close to the end of this one.
Yeah, no, I think that would be a really good topic to add to the list. Even that, and I'm not. Yeah, we've got only a few minutes left. I'm thinking about some interviews that I've read about certain actors who are completely method, stay in character the entire time when they're filming. Doesn't matter if they're on break, whatever, in between
Yeah.
scenes, waiting for setup. And so the people that were working with them thought there was a problem, like they're the problem, like they're not giving them what they need as an actor, that they're being they should have hired somebody else, kind of thing, because I'm not up to the level of this guy or this gal. And then you find out afterwards, like they're totally fine with you because now they're actually being themselves, but then you didn't know that during the process. So I'm
Yeah.
like, who else does that in any industry?
Nobody in any other industry that I can think of. It's a very privileged technique that that comes at a cost to pretty much everyone who's not using that technique. So whatever poor grip is on stage, you know what I mean? Like we can talk about that. There's a lot of issues that come with that for me.
Okay, yeah, no, that again for me, just kind of reading and learning about some of the things, I'm like, why would I mean, and I'd heard about several other actors that did something similar, but at least at some point they broke character and were talking with their castmates.
Sure.
So they kind of knew, just as a person, you can kind of relate to each other, and depending on what's going on in the story with their characters and blah blah blah. But for somebody to stay flat out, I'm just going to stay like this the entire time for 6 weeks or whatever it was filming.
Well,
Like,
and it's also it's revered when men do it. You know, it's everyone points to the men who have that kind of discipline who can do that as like, wow, they're so committed. Women are not given that same grace, but also oftentimes those men are hurt people. Like there's film combat where there's like a limit to what the actor does versus when the stunt person comes in. Sometimes they're so method, they're just so into this character that they just accidentally actually slap the crap out of their co-star. I mean, it happens frequently, and it's really problematic. So I'm not naysaying the entire concept of method acting. I would never naysay an entire technique, but there's a lot of problems that come with that one.
sure, sounds like it. Yeah, we'll try to delve into it in a future session. So I do want to mention that also my mom's saying something about Ethiopian food. So okay, mom, I'll talk to you later about
Yay, Ethiopian though.
that. And as we wind this down, Kate, I'll turn it over to you. Is there anything you want to mention, either something coming up or just some basic thought off your head? You're like, I'm good.
I mean, again, I'm gonna just reemphasize that like all the juju from all parts of the world for my Monday interview. And then, yeah, I'm just gonna say that. I guess that's all I feel like I can say before I actually get into jinxing territory, and I don't want to do that.
All right. And from my end, for folks, if you want to tune in tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific, I have Gator from Yellowstone, the popular TV show, coming back. He's been here it was 2 years ago. And so he's scheduled to be here at 11 a.m. So we'll talk about food and everything else that he does for roughly an hour. And then if you're still wanting to see my bald head on Thursday, you can join me at noon Pacific as Selena Says continues its second session with Selena Ivy, and we'll see how we've come with the juggling that we talked about during our first session. So yeah, I had Kate today, Gabe, Gator tomorrow, and then Selena on Thursday. Please again leave comments and get a hold of us of what you want to see for future things with conversations with Kate. Clearly, during this session, we came up with topics on our own. But we want to add to that pool. We want more and more, more input from people, and we'll fold it into the next session. So until then, thank you so much for watching, listening, however you're digesting this, and we'll see you next month in March. Thanks, everybody.